FAQs about Helleborus Dark and Handsome. As someone who has spent a lot of time gardening and experimenting with various plants, Helleborus Dark and Handsome has quickly become one of my favorites. The rich, deep blackish-purple blooms are simply stunning, and they bring a unique elegance to the garden, especially during the late winter and early spring months. I often get asked about this striking plant, so I thought it would be helpful to compile some FAQs about the Helleborus Dark and Handsome, also known as Dark and Handsome Helleborus, or Helleborus Wedding Party Dark and Handsome. What is Helleborus Dark and Handsome? Helleborus Dark and Handsome is a hybrid variety of Lenten rose, specifically bred for its deep, velvety flowers that range from dark purple to almost black. Part of the Helleborus Wedding Party series, this variety stands out in the garden with its dramatic color, which contrasts beautifully with other lighter-colored plants. The blooms typically appear in late winter to early spring, making it a wonderful addition for early-season interest. How to care for Dark and Handsome Helleborus. Caring for Dark and Handsome Helleborus is relatively straightforward, which is one of the reasons I love this plant. Here are the key care tips. Light. Helleborus Dark and Handsome thrives in partial to full shade. It can tolerate some sun, especially in cooler climates, but too much direct sunlight can scorch the leaves. Soil. This plant prefers well-drained soil that is rich in organic matter. I usually add compost to the planting site to ensure the soil retains moisture but still drains well. Watering. While it's establishing, I keep the soil consistently moist. Once established, Helleborus Dark and Handsome is quite drought-tolerant, but I still water it during extended dry periods to keep it looking its best. Fertilizing. In the early spring, I like to give it a light feeding with a balanced, slow-release fertilizer. This helps encourage healthy growth and abundant blooms. Pruning. After the blooms fade, I remove the old flower stems to keep the plant tidy. I also trim any damaged or dead leaves as needed. How to propagate Helleborus Wedding Party Dark and Handsome. Propagating Helleborus Wedding Party Dark and Handsome is typically done through division. Here's how I do it. Timing. The best time to divide this plant is in the early spring, just as new growth begins, or in the fall after the blooming season. Digging. I carefully dig up the entire clump, being mindful not to damage the roots. Dividing. Using a sharp knife or spade, I divide the clump into smaller sections, ensuring each division has a healthy root system and a few growing points. Replanting. I replant the divisions immediately, spacing them out to allow room for growth. I make sure to water them well after planting. What to plant with Lenten Rose Helleborus Dark and Handsome. Pairing Lenten Rose Helleborus Dark and Handsome with complementary plants can create stunning visual effects in the garden. I've had great success pairing it with hostas. Their large, lush leaves contrast beautifully with the dark blooms of the Helleborus. Ferns. The delicate fronds of ferns provide a soft background, allowing the dark flowers to stand out. Heuchera. I love combining different shades of Heuchera, especially those with silver or lime foliage, to highlight the deep tones of Dark and Handsome Helleborus. Common issues and solutions. Like any plant, Dark and Handsome Helleborus can encounter a few issues, but nothing too overwhelming. Here are some common problems and how I handle them. Pests. Slugs and snails are the most common pests. I usually set out slug traps or use organic slug pellets around the base of the plant. Diseases. Occasionally, Helleborus can suffer from leaf spot or downy mildew. I try to avoid overhead watering and ensure good air circulation around the plants to prevent these issues. If they do occur, I remove and dispose of affected leaves and use a fungicide if necessary. How to make the most of your Helleborus Dark and Handsome. To truly make the most of your Helleborus Dark and Handsome, consider its placement in the garden. I like to plant it in shaded borders or woodland gardens where its dark flowers can add a touch of mystery. It also works well in containers, which can be moved to a prominent spot when in bloom. In my experience, Helleborus Dark and Handsome is a low-maintenance, high-impact plant that brings beauty to the garden when few other plants are in bloom. Its dark, moody flowers are a conversation starter, and with the right care, it will thrive and provide enjoyment for years to come. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, I highly recommend adding this unique Lenten rose to your collection.